With the levels of pure destructive power possessed by some heroes and villains in comic books, it's surprising that every story doesn't end up in an apocalypse. But what's really surprising is that when it does end in an apocalypse, there is always at least one superhero who survives. I'm Adam Andrews, and today on Top 10 Nerd, it's the top 10 superheroes who outlived the apocalypse. Coming in at number 10 is the Hulk. There are many instances of the Incredible Hulk outliving the apocalypse, and that's mainly because he is pretty much unkillable and immune to almost everything. Hulk the End, Future Imperfect, Old Man Logan, Immortal Hulk, even Planet Hulk to some degree. All these stories see the Hulk surviving nuclear devastation, villainous takeovers, the destruction of planets, and even the destruction of the universe. The End is probably the most famous and Hulk-centric of these stories, and it sees the Hulk as the last surviving person on the entire planet. He is completely alone except for the mutated and irradiated insects that try to devour him every single day. The best part of this story is that it strips away all the extra bells and whistles of conventional comic book storytelling, and it basically just leaves the whole conflict centered on Bruce Banner, the Hulk, and the relationship that they have together. In the end, even when Bruce Banner passes away, somehow the Hulk still manages to endure. And at number 9, Wolverine. Similar to how the Hulk is a resilient character, so is Wolverine. Of all the Marvel characters, these two seem to be more often than not surviving most apocalyptic events. I think it's also why they always seem to be facing each other as well. With Wolverine's incredible healing factor coupled with his adamantium skeleton plus his ferocious fighting style and survival skills, Wolverine is almost always there when the fire has died down. One of the landmark apocalyptic stories is Old Man Logan, and as you can probably tell, that centers around Logan, Wolverine. After the villains had all coordinated an attack on the heroes of the world and wiped out a huge majority of them, the Wolverine was tricked into playing a major role in that conflict, and he ended up keeping his head down and just trying to weather out the storm with his family, and it's the Hulk who actually tore all that down for him. While Wolverine still ages, it's at such an incredibly slow rate that he will outlive most every one of the Earth's-based heroes in the Marvel Universe. Number 8. Hawkeye. But since we spoke about Old Man Logan, we have got to talk about another character from that universe who even got his own old man story that was really good. Hawkeye might seem like the least likely person to survive through an apocalypse. Of all the Avengers, he is one that just seems incredibly squishy. He has no superpowers, no extra durability, no healing factor, and in Old Man Logan, he's even blind thanks to cataracts. What actually happens is that Hawkeye led a team of Avengers against the villains when they all banded together, and his team were assisted by the Thunderbolts, aka Marvel's Suicide Squad. It should not have come as a surprise when the Thunderbolts instead turned their back on Hawkeye and his heroes. It led to the eradication of that entire team, and when Baron Zemo finally took out Black Widow, he spared Clint Barton for the simple goal of tormenting the least threatening Avenger. But Clint is actually quite the capable guy. As we all know, he is a master archer, with incredibly powerful eyesight for a human being. His body is on par with Olympic athletes, he's a master martial artist with supreme tactical know-how, and he is one hell of a survivor. Being blind doesn't even impair him, as he basically develops incredibly acute senses where he can still use his bow and even drive a car without needing to see. Number 7. Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman Dead Earth is just absolutely insane. This post-apocalyptic comic picks up in what used to be Gotham City. Deep down in the remnants of the Batcave, Wonder Woman had been kept alive in a containment unit and was awoken by a group of surviving humans who were running from a mutated monster known as Hydra. After saving the Humies and liberating their city, she journeys to Themyscira only to find out that the Hydra are actually her fellow Amazons mutated by atomic radiation after the world had bombarded Themyscira with nuclear fire, even though Diana used the absolute limits of her abilities to try and stop that from happening. When Superman, who fought for humanity in the past, turned up to try and explain why he couldn't have helped, we see just how powerful this Wonder Woman is. She loses complete control of herself, and her and Superman fight each other to the point of causing a great fire that plunged the world into the apocalypse. And at the end of that fight, Wonder Woman, who was double fisting some kryptonite, brought Superman to his knees and then to his grave. She collapsed from exhaustion soon after, but when she learned of this past, Wonder Woman decided to set things right and protect what was left of humanity from what she once called her sisters. And for our number 6 spot today, it's Batman. And all I have to say for this point is, he's Batman. I don't know what you want me to say. Number 5. V. V for Vendetta is one of the greatest comic book stories and graphic novels of the past 40 years. The story takes place in a post-nuclear apocalypse, near-future version of the United Kingdom in the 1990s. This dystopian England is ruled by a supremacist, neo-fascist, homophobic political party known as Northfire, who have destroyed their opponents and now rule the country as a police state. The man who would later become V is first an inmate at the worst of this dystopian government's camps. There, he undergoes horrible medical experimentation that had taken the life of every other test subject, but for Prisoner 5, the lethal hormone injections he sustained instead granted him Olympic-level reflexes, increased strength, and an incredibly expanded mental capacity. On the night of November the 5th, he uses improvised explosives to blow up the prison and escape. For the next 5 years, he devises a huge plan for his vendetta on the government, and I'm not really gonna reveal any more of this story because this is a story that if you haven't read it, you need to enjoy it for yourself. Number 4. T'Challa. If we are talking apocalyptic events in comic books, it would be an absolute disservice to not mention Marvel zombies. The problem here is that the zombie virus is so unstoppable that there isn't a single hero who survives the entire thing. That being said, the longest lasting hero of the Marvel zombie series was actually none other than T'Challa, aka Black Panther. In a way, T'Challa was saved by Hank Pym, but that was so that Black Panther could be used as a literal snack for the zombie Ant-Man. Pym literally took off both T'Challa's arm and leg to consume before he can escape Pym's lab. Once T'Challa gets out of there, he is taken to Asteroid M by Magneto's acolytes and given prosthetics by Forge. He survives so long that later he even has a child with one of the acolytes. When the Earth eventually became habitable again, the acolytes alongside T'Challa returned, founding New Wakanda, which T'Challa ruled. He went on to even be a grandpa before Marvel Zombies 2 happened, when T'Challa is finally turned zombie by Wasp after 40 years of surviving the apocalypse. Number 3. Thor. It goes without saying that Thor, Odin's son, being a literal god, has an incredibly long lifespan. His father Odin is millions of years old, and Thor is meant to eventually exceed his dad as the new Allfather. In the alternate timeline of Earth 14412, he successfully does this. During the War of the Realms in this universe, Thor sacrificed his eye to obtain the knowledge to defeat Malekith the Accursed, and because of that, he was made Allfather of Asgard. At some point, Thor eventually left Asgard and joined Omnipotent City's Ministry of Interdeity Justice, meaning Thor became a cosmic god cop, preventing wars among various pantheons and arresting gods that broke their godly laws. After spending some time as a sentient planet, assisting Sorcerer Supreme Daemon Hellstrom, surviving in the frozen jungles of Jotunheim, falling in love with a frost giant, and having a few kids, Thor returned to Asgard and finally inherited the power of the Allfather from Odin, renaming it the Thor Force. It was after all these countless years that Thor's brother Loki instigated the annihilation of all life on Earth out of spite. But Thor still carried on, with the loss of his friends and comrades causing Thor to become a stern and cynical ruler, just like Odin before him. Funnily enough, Wolverine also survived this one too, so. Number 2. Punisher. Anytime the Marvel villain Thanos wins, it almost always means some kind of apocalyptic level event. But in the Thanos Wins story arc from writers Donny Cates and Jeff Shaw from Thanos Volume 2, we see the actual endgame of a successful Thanos thousands and thousands of years in the future. And it ain't good. But this is about heroes. One hero who survived to the end was actually Frank Castle, but he is a bit different in this story. Castle was hit with debris and actually passed away during the final stand against Thanos on Earth. Now once Frank made it to Hell, he made a deal with Mephisto to return to Earth for vengeance on the Mad Titan, and his wish was granted. Unfortunately, when this new Ghost Rider showed back up on Earth, everything was already lost. He was completely alone, and even Mephisto himself stopped responding eventually. This drove Frank completely insane. Eventually, the World Devourer Galactus showed up and Frank made a deal. Galactus was allowed to have the Earth if Galactus made Frank his new herald, granting this already powerful Ghost Rider the power cosmic as well. These two spent hundreds of years together until the day they finally faced Thanos, and well, it's called Thanos Wins for a reason. The Big Chin defeated Galactus with one fell head-chopping swoop. Frank then became King Thanos' #1 lackey, alongside a devolved version of the Incredible Hulk. Finally, in at number 1, It's Jon Kent. We already had Marvel Zombies on this list, so it's only fair that we conclude today with DC Comics' answer to the Marvel Zombies' explosive success with Deceased. I think it's worth noting though that the two stories are actually very different. The DC version is ultimately slightly more grounded and emotional. When I say grounded, I mean as grounded as a comic book story about superheroes and zombies can actually be. In this reality, the hero Cyborg has been captured by Darkseid on Apocalypse, and it's revealed that the anti-life equation lives inside of Cyborg. When Darkseid tries to take the equation, it is instead corrupted, causing Darkseid to explode Apocalypse, but not before Cyborg was sent to Earth. Once Cyborg arrives on Earth, he inadvertently infects the internet with the anti-life equation, which has taken the form of a techno-organic virus. This turns millions of people and a lot of metahumans into zombies. The loss of so many lives and heroes in particular have forced younger figures like Jon Kent into the action. Jon was forced to step up when his father, that's Superman in case you didn't know, became one of the infected, even stalling Superman long enough for the Green Lantern Corps to arrive on the scene and help save the day. Ever since then though, Jon has been serving as Superman in his father's stead in this world, alongside other heroes like Damian Wayne as Batman and Cassie Sandmark as Wonder Woman, and Wallace West as the Flash. And just like that, we have finally brought a close to this list of survivors. I'm Adam Andrews, thank you so much for watching here on Top 10 Nerd. I'll be sure to catch you all on the flippy flop, but until then, peace out nerds!